A human shared his last meal with a crying alien girl. 10 years later, her empire knelt before him. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. The titanium walls of the holding cell reflected the harsh white light, making Tyler Grant squint as he tried to assess his situation. Captured during a routine scouting mission on the edges of human space, he now sat alone in what appeared to be a Navorian detention facility. Tyler checked his rations again. 1 nutrient bar, half a canteen of water, and little hope for rescue this far into Navorian territory. The Navorians were notorious for their strict hierarchical society and militant expansion. Humans had managed to avoid direct conflict with them for decades through careful diplomacy, but tensions were mounting as both species expanded into neighboring sectors. His attention snapped to the cell door as it slid open with a pneumatic hiss. Instead of the armored guards he expected, a small figure slipped inside. A young Navorian girl, probably no more than the equivalent of 12 Earth years, stood before him. Her scaled skin was a pale blue, marked with delicate swirling patterns that signified her youth. Most striking were her large, almond-shaped eyes, currently rimmed with moisture that caught the light. She was crying. Tyler remained still, unsure how to react. Human-Navorian interactions were limited to formal diplomatic channels. He had never been this close to a Navorian civilian, let alone a child. "Are you a human?" she asked in halting English, her voice containing the characteristic melodic undertone of her species. "Yes," Tyler replied cautiously. "My name is Tyler Grant. I'm a scout for the Earth Alliance." The girl took a small step forward. Despite her obvious distress, she maintained the rigid posture typical of Navorians. "My designation is Alara, third daughter of House Tarivan." Tyler noticed she was trembling slightly. "Are you all right, Alara? Should you be here?" Her large eyes blinked rapidly. "No, I am not permitted in the detention sector. If my father discovers my presence here, I will be severely disciplined." She glanced nervously at the door. "But I wanted to see a human before." She stopped abruptly. "Before what?" Tyler prompted gently. "Before you were processed." The formal way she said it couldn't disguise the implication. Tyler felt his stomach tighten. "I see. And when does this processing happen?" "Tomorrow at dawn. Your presence violated 3 territorial boundaries. The penalty is severe." Alara's voice grew quieter. "I have never witnessed a processing before, but I have heard it is unpleasant." Tyler absorbed this information with outward calm, though his mind raced through possible escape scenarios. None seemed promising. "Why are you crying, Alara?" he asked, trying to change the subject from his impending fate. The question seemed to surprise her. She touched her face as if just realizing the tears. "It is my severance day. I have been deemed unsuitable for military service due to a genetic anomaly. I am to be reassigned to administrative duties." She said this as if announcing a death sentence. "And that's bad," Tyler ventured, unfamiliar with Navorian culture beyond basic briefings. "It is shameful. My bloodline has produced military commanders for 7 generations. My father is Supreme Commander Tarivan of the Expansion Fleet." Pride momentarily straightened her posture before dejection returned. "Now I bring disgrace to my house. I will never command, never see the stars up close, never." She trailed off, her alien features twisted in an expression Tyler recognized despite the species barrier, devastation. Tyler felt a sudden, unexpected surge of compassion. Here was a child. Alien, yes, but still a child, facing what her culture told her was the end of all her dreams. He knew what that felt like. Before becoming a scout, he had failed the pilot program examinations 3 times. The memory of that disappointment remained sharp even years later. "I'm sorry, Alara. That sounds really difficult." He hesitated, then reached into his pocket. "Would you like to share my last meal with me?" Her head tilted in confusion. "Share your nutrition?" Tyler unwrapped his emergency ration bar, the last one he had. "Where I come from, sharing food is a way to show friendship. And it seems like we both could use a friend right now." Alara stared at the offered portion with wide eyes. Navorians do not share food. It is considered intimate. Nevertheless, she approached cautiously and accepted the half he extended. Consider it a cultural exchange then, Tyler said with a smile. A human tradition. They sat together on the floor, the human prisoner and the Navorian child, each nibbling their half of the unappetizing ration bar. Tyler noticed that despite her initial hesitation, Alara seemed hungry. He wondered if her severance day had included meals. "What is Earth like?" she asked suddenly. "We are taught it is overcrowded and chaotic." Tyler chuckled. "Parts of it are. But there are also incredible forests, vast oceans, mountains that touch the clouds. There's this lake near where I grew up in Montana, so clear you can see straight to the bottom, with fish swimming between colorful rocks." Fish? Like water-dwelling protein sources? Well, yes, but they're more than that. They're beautiful. People keep them as pets sometimes, just to watch them swim. Alara looked scandalized. "You maintain animals for aesthetic purposes rather than consumption? We do a lot of things that might seem strange to Navorians." Tyler smiled. "Just like you probably do things that would seem strange to humans." For the first time, a small smile appeared on Alara's face. It transformed her features from alien to simply young. Like our bonding ceremonies, where we connect our consciousness to our ancestral memory pools. Exactly like that. That sounds fascinating, by the way. They continued talking, the condemned man and the disgraced child, finding unexpected common ground in their differences. Tyler described Earth's changing seasons, its diverse cultures, the freedom to choose one's path. Alara explained Navorian social structures, their reverence for ancestry, and their collective approach to child-rearing. As they spoke, Tyler noticed Alara gradually relaxing her rigid posture. She sat cross-legged now, gesturing with her hands when describing the massive void ships that made up the Navorian fleet. "And the Dominance is my father's flagship. 14 levels, temporal distortion engines, weaponry that can reduce a moon to particles." There was pride in her voice, but also longing. "I was to serve there after my training. Now I will never see beyond our home system." Tyler frowned. "Why not? Administrative duties can be performed on ships too, right? Not for the genetically flawed. We are considered security risks." Alara's gaze dropped to the floor. "My condition could potentially compromise critical systems." "What condition exactly?" Tyler asked gently. Alara hesitated before answering. "My neural pathways process differently. I cannot interface properly with our ship systems. The symbiotic connections reject me." She touched the back of her neck where Tyler noticed small, scale-less patches. "Implant points," he guessed. "And I feel things too intensely. Emotions cloud my judgment, they say." Tyler smiled wryly. "That's considered pretty normal for humans, actually." "Really?" Her eyes widened. "You are permitted such instability?" "We don't see it as instability. Emotions inform our decisions, help us connect with others. Empathy is considered a strength in many human cultures." Alara seemed to contemplate this revolutionary concept. "Perhaps that explains why humans have advanced so quickly despite your physical limitations. Your unpredictability is adaptable." Before Tyler could respond, a distant alarm sounded. Alara jumped to her feet, fear evident in her movements. "I must go. The shift change is occurring." She moved toward the door, then paused. "Thank you for sharing your food, Tyler Grant." It was a meaningful gesture. "Alara," Tyler called as she reached for the door controls. "Remember, being different isn't always a disadvantage. Sometimes it's what makes you valuable." She gave him a long look, something unreadable in her alien eyes. Then she was gone, the door sliding shut behind her. Alone again, Tyler leaned back against the wall. He thought about his impending processing and wondered if Alara would remember their conversation. A small, kind moment amid two clashing civilizations. It seemed such a waste. All this conflict when they could learn so much from each other. Hours later, Tyler was startled awake by alarms blaring throughout the facility. Red emergency lights pulsed along the corridors. His cell door suddenly slid open. Tyler tensed, ready for guards, but instead found an empty hallway before him. He didn't hesitate. Whatever was happening provided an opportunity he couldn't ignore. Tyler slipped into the corridor, moving cautiously toward what he hoped was an exit. The facility was in chaos. Navorian personnel rushed past without giving him a second glance, focused on some greater emergency. As he navigated the unfamiliar complex, Tyler realized he was heading toward a docking bay. Ships of various sizes were being prepared for departure while officers shouted orders. In the confusion, Tyler managed to blend in, keeping his head down and moving purposefully as if he belonged. He spotted a small maintenance shuttle, its ramp down and engines cycling for pre-flight. The lone Navorian technician was distracted, checking systems on a handheld device. Tyler slipped aboard, finding a storage compartment to hide in just as the ramp began to close. The shuttle lifted off shortly after, joining what seemed to be an evacuation. Through a small viewport in his hiding place, Tyler watched the Navorian facility grow smaller before disappearing entirely as they entered hyperspace. Only then did he wonder what had caused such panic. Had his people launched a rescue mission? It seemed unlikely. The Earth Alliance rarely risked open conflict with the Navorians, especially not for one scout. 17 hours later, having survived on emergency supplies found aboard the shuttle, Tyler felt the distinctive shudder of a ship dropping out of hyperspace. Cautiously emerging from his hiding place, he peered through a larger viewport and froze in shock. Before him was the massive Navorian flagship Dominance, a behemoth that dwarfed the shuttle he'd stowed away on. The shuttle was on approach to one of its many docking bays. Tyler's mind raced. He had escaped one Navorian facility only to end up on their most powerful warship, deep in enemy territory. His options were limited. He could try to commandeer the shuttle once it landed, but that seemed doomed to failure against the hundreds of Navorians aboard the flagship. He could continue hiding, but supplies would eventually run out. Or he could surrender and hope for diplomatic intervention, though his unauthorized presence on their flagship would likely be viewed as espionage, a crime with even harsher penalties than boundary violations. The decision was made for him when the shuttle docked and armed Navorian security forces entered, methodically searching each compartment. They found Tyler within minutes, weapons trained on him as they communicated rapidly in their native language. Tyler raised his hand slowly. "I surrender peacefully," he said clearly, hoping at least one understood English. A security officer stepped forward, translator device in hand. "Human infiltrator, you are detained under authority of Supreme Commander Tarivan. Resistance will result in immediate termination." Tyler was secured in restraints and marched through the massive ship. The Dominance was even more impressive from the inside, a marvel of engineering with systems Tyler could barely comprehend. Navorian crew members stopped to stare as he passed, many seemingly never having seen a human before. Finally, they arrived at what appeared to be a command center. The massive chamber was a hive of activity, with holographic displays showing star charts, fleet positions, and data streams. At the center stood a commanding figure, tall even for a Navorian, with deep blue scales bearing intricate patterns that signified high rank. Supreme Commander Tarivan. As Tyler was brought before him, he noticed the family resemblance to Alara immediately, the same distinctive markings around the eyes, though the commander's were hard and calculating where hers had been expressive. "The human scout," Tarivan said in perfect English, studying Tyler with cold intensity. "Explain how you came to be aboard my flagship." Tyler decided honesty was his only viable option. "I was detained at one of your facilities after my scout ship drifted into contested space. During what appeared to be an evacuation, I managed to board a shuttle. I didn't know it was bound for the Dominance." Tarivan's eyes narrowed. "And why would you choose to hide rather than identify yourself?" "With respect, Commander, I was scheduled for processing at dawn. I took an opportunity to avoid execution." A murmur went through the officers present. Tarivan silenced them with a gesture. "Processing is not execution, human. It is information extraction followed by neural rewriting." His tone suggested this should be common knowledge. "Your species' ignorance of proper protocol continues to be problematic." Tyler felt cold at the description. Neural rewriting sounded worse than execution. What caused the evacuation? He asked, trying to change the subject. Tareven studied him for a long moment. An incident that does not concern you. Though I find it coincidental that it occurred shortly after your capture. I was alone on a scouting mission, Tyler insisted. Whatever happened wasn't related to me. Before Tareven could respond, a communication officer approached and spoke urgently in their native language. The commander's expression hardened further. It seems we have another situation requiring my attention. He addressed the security team. Take the human to holding cell Alpha. Maximum security protocols. I will deal with him personally after this matter is resolved. As Tyler was led away, he caught fragments of urgent communications, something about a security breach, systems being compromised, unusual access patterns. He couldn't make sense of it, but the level of concern among the Navorian command staff was evident. The holding cell on the Dominance made his previous accommodations seem luxurious by comparison. A small, featureless cube with energy barriers instead of physical walls, it offered no possibility of escape. Tyler sat on the hard surface that served as both seat and bed, trying to formulate a plan but finding no viable options. Hours passed. Tyler dozed fitfully, waking at every sound from the corridor outside. Finally, the energy barrier flickered and deactivated. Tyler stood, expecting guards, or perhaps Commander Tareven himself. Instead, Alara slipped inside, the barrier reactivating behind her. "You!" Tyler exclaimed, genuinely shocked. "What are you doing here?" Alara looked different. She wore what appeared to be a cadet's uniform. Her posture was straighter, and her eyes held a determined gleam. "I caused the distraction that allowed your escape," she said without preamble. "I accessed the detention facility's security protocols and triggered the emergency evacuation system." Tyler stared at her in disbelief. "You helped me escape? What?" "Your words affected me. About being different having value." She stepped closer. "After you left, I decided to test my abilities. I discovered I could interface with our systems in ways others cannot. Not through the standard neural connections, but through alternative methods." "You hacked your own security systems?" Tyler was impressed despite the circumstances. "Our systems are designed to detect and repel standardized intrusion attempts. My unique neural pathways approach problems differently." A hint of pride colored her voice. "The security measures cannot recognize my methods as unauthorized access. And now you're on the flagship?" Tyler was struggling to keep up with these developments. "I convinced my father that my skills could be valuable in a different capacity. He allowed me to join the junior technical division as a probationary member." Alara glanced nervously at the barrier. "But I have limited time. Security protocols will detect my presence here soon. Why risk helping me again? Your father is the supreme commander. If he discovers what you've done, because you treated me as a person of value when my own people saw only failure." Alara's voice grew stronger. "And because I believe what you said about our peoples learning from each other. The Navorian Empire expands through conquest because we know no other way. But I have accessed historical records, studied your Federation, alliance." Tyler corrected automatically. "Your alliance," she amended. "Your cooperative approach has strengthened you rather than weakened you, as our philosophy would predict. This interests me." Tyler sensed there was more. And I believe war between our peoples is imminent. The evacuation was not merely because of my security breach. We detected an alliance fleet approaching the contested boundary. My father suspects a rescue attempt for you, possibly a pretext for war." Tyler felt sick. "It's not. The alliance wouldn't risk war over one scout. Perhaps. But misunderstandings between different species can escalate quickly." Alara reached into a pocket and withdrew a small device. "I cannot free you without revealing my involvement, but I can give you this." Tyler accepted the device cautiously. "What is it?" "A neural interface adapted to human physiology. It will allow you to access certain systems, not enough to escape, but enough to communicate. When the moment comes, use it. Speak truth to power, Tyler Grant." Her eyes held his. "As you did with me." Before Tyler could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Alara tensed. I must go. That is the battle alert. We have engaged your alliance forces. She moved toward the barrier. Remember what connects us, not what divides us. With that cryptic statement, she deactivated the barrier momentarily and slipped out, leaving Tyler alone with the strange device and a growing sense of dread. The alarms continued as Tyler examined the device Alara had given him. It resembled a small metallic disc with delicate circuitry visible beneath a transparent surface. How it might interface with his human physiology wasn't immediately clear. It had no obvious connection points. A massive shudder ran through the ship, nearly knocking Tyler off his feet. The battle had begun. He pocketed the device, knowing he might need it soon but uncertain how to use it. Within minutes, the barrier to his cell deactivated again. This time, it was indeed armed guards who entered, weapons ready. Commander Tarivan demands your presence on the bridge, the lead guard stated through his translator. You will comply immediately. Tyler was escorted through corridors now filled with purposeful activity. Crew members rushed to battle stations while damage control teams stood ready. Another impact rocked the ship, but the Navorian design absorbed it efficiently. The bridge was a scene of controlled chaos when Tyler arrived. Holographic displays showed the ongoing battle, Alliance ships, vastly outnumbered, engaging the Navorian fleet with precision strikes rather than direct confrontation. Commander Tarivan stood at the center, issuing orders with calm authority. He turned as Tyler was brought forward. Your alliance makes a foolish stand, human. Our forces outnumber yours 3-1. This isn't a rescue mission for me, Tyler insisted, studying the tactical displays. Look at their formation. They're defensive, protecting the boundary, not trying to penetrate your lines. Tarivan gestured to a particular display. Then explain these communication bursts directed at this ship. They are asking for you by name and rank. Tyler felt a surge of hope. They knew he was alive, were trying to negotiate. Commander, this is a misunderstanding. Let me communicate with them. I can prevent unnecessary bloodshed. You suggest I allow an enemy combatant to access our communication systems during battle? Tarivan's tone made clear what he thought of this idea. I suggest you allow me to prevent a war neither of our peoples truly wants. Tyler met the commander's gaze steadily. Your daughter Alara showed more wisdom when she shared a meal with me than you're showing now with your fleet. A ripple of shock went through the bridge crew at this personal reference. Tarivan's eyes widened slightly before narrowing in anger. You dare speak of my daughter? How do you know of Alara? We met when I was detained. We talked, shared food, learned about each other's cultures. Tyler took a calculated risk. She is brilliant, Commander. Different, yes, but that difference is her strength, not a flaw. Tarivan stepped closer, towering over Tyler. You know nothing of our ways, human. Alara's condition makes her unique, Tyler interrupted. Uniquely capable of seeing solutions others might miss. Just as our differences as species could strengthen both of us rather than dividing us. Another impact rocked the ship, harder this time. Warning indicators flashed across multiple displays. Hull breach on Deck 7, an officer reported. Alliance forces have penetrated our forward shields with a new weapon signature. Tarivan turned away, focused again on the battle. Target their lead vessel. Prepare main cannons. Tyler felt the weight of the device in his pocket. This was the moment Alara had mentioned. With guards distracted by the battle, he slipped it out and pressed it against his temple as he'd seen Navorians do with similar devices. The sensation was immediate and overwhelming, like plunging into an ice-cold data stream. Information flooded his consciousness, most incomprehensible, but some strangely familiar. He felt rather than saw connections forming, pathways opening. Without fully understanding how, Tyler reached out mentally toward the communication systems. The Navorian interfaces resisted at first, then yielded as the device adapted to his neural patterns. His voice suddenly projected throughout the bridge, but also transmitted on all frequencies to the Alliance ships. This is Scout Tyler Grant of the Earth Alliance. I am aboard the Navorian flagship Dominance. I request immediate cessation of hostilities and open dialogue between Commander Tarivan and Alliance leadership. The bridge erupted in confusion. Tarivan spun toward Tyler, rage and disbelief warring on his face. How dare you access our systems? Guards, restrain him. But before they could reach him, the main display changed. The face of Admiral Lauren Bennett of the Alliance appeared, her expression stern but controlled. This is Admiral Bennett responding to Scout Grant. We are prepared for dialogue if the Navorian forces stand down. We have no desire for war, only the return of our personnel and clarification of boundary disputes. Tarivan stared at the display, then at Tyler, clearly reassessing the situation. With a gesture, he halted the guards. You have compromised my ship's security, he said to Tyler, voice deadly quiet. That alone is grounds for execution. No, Commander, Tyler replied, still connected to the ship's systems. I've opened a door that needed opening. Your daughter helped me because she believes, as I do, that there's a better way forward than conflict. At the mention of Alara again, something shifted in Tarivan's expression. Alara aided you? That is not possible. She lacks the neural capacity to. She found another way. Her different thinking allowed her to see solutions your standardized approaches missed. Tyler felt the neural connection weakening, but pressed on. Just as our species can find solutions together that neither would discover alone. Admiral Bennett spoke again from the display. Commander Tarivan, we are detecting unusual energy signatures from your weapons systems. I strongly advise against escalation. We are prepared to discuss terms. Tarivan stood at a crossroads, with his bridge crew watching, waiting for his decision. The battle hung in suspension, both sides poised between peace and devastating war. In that moment, a new figure entered the bridge, Alara, escorted by two officers who seemed uncertain whether she was there by permission or as a detainee. Father, she said, her voice clear and carrying across the suddenly silent bridge. I helped the human because he showed me kindness when our ways showed only rejection. His differences and mine are not weaknesses. They are evolutionary advantages. Tarivan looked between his daughter and Tyler, something unreadable passing across his features. Then he turned to face the display showing Admiral Bennett. This discussion, he said finally, will require more appropriate channels. Stand down weapons. Prepare a secure communication link. He glanced at Tyler, and perhaps a cultural attaché to avoid future misunderstandings. As the orders were relayed and the tension on the bridge gradually eased, Tyler caught Alara's eye across the room. She gave him the smallest of smiles, a gesture that crossed species barriers, a promise of possibility. The meal they had shared, a simple act of compassion amid conflict, had created a connection neither of their peoples could have anticipated. It was a small beginning, but beginnings were powerful things. And as negotiations began between the two civilizations, Tyler wondered what other bridges might be built between them in the years to come. 10 years passed like the blink of a cosmic eye. Tyler Grant stood at the viewport of the diplomatic vessel Concordia, watching the stars streak past as they traveled through hyperspace. His reflection showed a man changed by time. A few threads of silver in his dark hair, lines around his eyes that spoke of both laughter and hardship, and the confident bearing of someone who had found his purpose. Ambassador Grant will be arriving at Navoria Prime in 20 minutes, Captain Riley announced through the comm system. Thank you, Captain. Tyler straightened his formal diplomatic uniform, deep blue with silver accents representing the Earth Alliance. The insignia on his chest marked him as Ambassador Plenipotentiary to the Navorian Empire, a position that would have been unthinkable a decade ago. The years following that fateful encounter on the Dominance had been tumultuous. The initial peace talks had been tense, with centuries of Navorian expansion philosophy clashing against the Alliance's cooperative ideals. Progress came in small steps. First, the establishment of clear boundaries, then trade agreements for non-military technologies, followed by cultural exchange programs. Tyler had been central to these efforts, his unique understanding of Navorian culture making him invaluable to alliance diplomacy. He had seen Alara only occasionally during official functions, watching from a distance as she rose through the ranks of the Navorian Technical Corps, an unprecedented career path that challenged traditional hierarchies. Now he was returning to Navoria Prime for the first time in 3 years for what the cryptic diplomatic communique had described as a ceremony of historical significance. The message had come directly from Supreme Commander Tarivan, who had maintained his position of power despite the radical changes in Navorian foreign policy. A soft alert indicated they were dropping out of hyperspace. The streaking stars resolved into pinpoints as the Concordia emerged near Navoria Prime, a world of swirling purples and blues, orbited by massive shipyards and defense platforms. Ambassador, Captain Riley's voice came through again. We're receiving a priority transmission from the surface. It's from High Technician Alara Tarivan. Tyler felt a smile touch his lips. Put her through to my quarters, please. The holographic display activated, and Alara's image appeared before him. The decade had transformed her from a child into a striking adult Navorian. The pale blue scales of her youth had deepened to a rich azure, and the once simple patterns had developed into elaborate markings denoting her status. Her bearing was confident, poised, yet Tyler could still see traces of the vulnerable girl who had shared his last meal in a detention cell. Tyler Grant, she greeted him, using his full name as she always had, a reminder of their first meeting. Your arrival is most timely. Alara Tarivan, he responded in kind. Your invitation was intriguing, if somewhat vague. A smile played at the edges of her mouth, an expression she had adopted from humans. Some announcements must be made in person, particularly when they alter the course of civilizations. That sounds ominous. It is transformative, she corrected. The ceremony begins in 3 hours. A private transport awaits you at the orbital station. She paused, her expression softening slightly. It is good to see you, Tyler Grant. Before he could respond, the transmission ended, leaving Tyler with more questions than answers. The orbital station bustled with activity when the Concordia docked. Tyler was met by a Navorian honor guard, a formality typically reserved for heads of state. Their leader, a battle-scarred veteran, saluted him with unexpected deference. Ambassador Grant, I am Commander Vex. I am to escort you to the Imperial Citadel. Tyler raised an eyebrow. The Citadel was the heart of Navorian government, rarely open to non-Navorians. I'm honored by the invitation. Commander Vex led him to a sleek transport vessel. As they departed the station, Tyler noticed something unusual. The Navorian warships patrolling the system were positioning themselves in a formal ceremonial pattern, not the defensive formations he was accustomed to seeing. Something significant is happening today, Tyler observed casually. Commander Vex gave him a measured look. The most significant event in Navorian history since the founding. Beyond that, I cannot say. The transport descended through Navoria Prime's atmosphere, giving Tyler a spectacular view of the capital city. A marvel of engineering with spiraling towers and massive complexes connected by elevated transport tubes. At the center stood the Imperial Citadel, a mountain of a building that housed the ruling council and the Supreme Commander's offices. As they landed on a private platform high in the Citadel, Tyler was surprised to find Alara waiting for him. She wore formal attire unlike any Navorian uniform he had seen before. Elements of traditional design blended with something new, something that almost resembled Alliance stylistic influences. Welcome to Navoria Prime, Ambassador, she said formally, conscious of the guards and officials nearby. Then, more quietly as he approached, I have arranged a private briefing before the ceremony. You should be prepared for what is to come. Tyler followed her through corridors of polished stone and metal, noting the respectful, almost reverent way officials and military personnel acknowledged Alara as they passed. Her status had clearly evolved far beyond what he had realized. They entered a secure chamber where holographic displays showed real-time data from across the Navorian Empire, fleet movements, resource allocations, diplomatic communications. Tyler had never been permitted access to such information before. Once the door sealed behind them, Alara's formal demeanor softened. "It is truly good to see you, Tyler. Your work these past years has been remarkable, as has yours, clearly," he replied, gesturing to the impressive command center. "High technician seems an understatement for your position now." A complicated expression crossed her features. "My title changes today, as does much else." She activated a central display showing a map of known space, Navorian territory, Alliance worlds, and the neutral zones between them. "What do you see here?" Tyler studied the display. Two major powers maintaining an uneasy peace, with increasing cooperation but fundamental differences in governance and philosophy. And here, she touched a control, and the display shifted to show projected territorial changes over the next century based on current trends. Tyler's eyes widened. The simulation showed Navorian expansion halting entirely, with collaborative zones growing between the two civilizations until the borders became almost meaningless. "That's not consistent with traditional Navorian imperial doctrine," he said carefully. "No, it is not." Alara's voice was steady. 10 years ago, you showed kindness to a child deemed flawed by her society. That child discovered her differences were strengths. That strength has grown into a movement." She gestured again, and the display showed internal Navorian statistics. Increasing numbers of citizens participating in educational exchanges with the Alliance, technological adaptations incorporating Alliance methodologies, and most surprisingly, polling data showing shifting attitudes toward expansion and hierarchy. "You've been busy," Tyler said, impressed by the scope of the changes. "We have been busy," she corrected. "Every diplomatic initiative you championed, every cultural exchange program, every technological collaboration, they created spaces where new ideas could take root." Her eyes held his. Where a meal shared between enemies could grow into something more. Tyler felt a growing suspicion about the ceremony he had been invited to attend. "Alara, what exactly is happening today?" She took a deep breath. "The succession. Supreme Commander Tarivan is stepping down." This was momentous news. Navorian leaders traditionally held power until death. Voluntary succession was almost unheard of. And his successor has already been chosen by the Imperial Council. Alara straightened, and Tyler suddenly understood. "It's you. They've chosen you." She nodded once. "The first Supreme Commander not selected from military ranks. The first with my particular neural differences." A hint of emotion colored her voice. "The first to advocate for transformation rather than conquest." Tyler was stunned. "Your father agreed to this?" "He proposed it." Alara's expression softened with something like wonder. "He said he had watched me find strength in difference, build bridges where others saw only boundaries to be conquered. He called it evolutionary advantage, using my own words from that day on the bridge." The pieces fell into place in Tyler's mind. "And the ceremony today is my investiture as Supreme Commander. But it is also something more." Alara's eyes held his. "It is a formal declaration of a new direction for the Navorian Empire, one that recognizes cooperation can be more powerful than conquest." She stepped closer. "I requested your presence specifically, Tyler Grant, the human who shared his last meal with a crying alien girl. The diplomat who never stopped believing peace was possible." Her voice grew more formal. "In Navorian tradition, when a new Supreme Commander takes power, all must kneel in acknowledgement of the new order. Today, I and the Imperial Council will kneel to honor the partnership between our peoples, a symbolic gesture recognizing that true strength comes not from domination, but from mutual respect." Tyler was speechless. The implications were enormous. A fundamental shift in Navorian culture that could reshape the political landscape of known space. "There is one more thing you should know," Alara continued. "Your act of kindness did more than change my path. It changed my father's." She activated a final display showing medical scans. "These are my neural patterns, and these are my father's. Do you see the similarities in the non-standard pathways?" Tyler studied the scans, recognizing the unusual patterns that had once caused Alara to be deemed flawed. Your condition is genetic, he realized. Your father has it too. Yes, but unlike me, he learned to suppress it, to conform to Navorian standards, until he saw me embrace my difference and turn it into strength. Her eyes shimmered with emotion. He told me recently that watching my journey helped him find parts of himself he had buried long ago, including the capacity to envision change rather than merely enforce tradition. A soft alert sounded, indicating the ceremony would begin soon. Alara straightened, resuming her formal bearing. It is time, Ambassador Grant. Are you prepared to witness the birth of a new era? The Imperial Assembly Hall was breathtaking. A vast chamber with soaring ceilings and walls of polished obsidian that reflected the light from enormous crystalline fixtures. Thousands of Navorians filled the tiered seating, military officers in formal regalia, government officials, representatives from every major house and colony world. Tyler was escorted to a position of honor near the central dais where Supreme Commander Tarivan stood in full ceremonial armor, imposing and regal. The commander acknowledged Tyler with a slight nod, a gesture of respect that would have been unthinkable a decade earlier. The ceremony began with traditional Navorian rituals, ancestral invocations, recitations of historical conquests, presentations of house banners. Then Supreme Commander Tarivan stepped forward, his powerful voice carrying throughout the vast chamber without amplification. For 7 generations, the House of Tarivan has led our people in expansion and conquest. We have claimed stars, subjugated worlds, extended the glory of Navoria across the galaxy. His words were traditional, expected, but Tyler detected a subtle shift in tone as he continued. Yet the universe teaches us that adaptation is the true path to survival. Those who cannot evolve cannot endure. A murmur ran through the assembly. This was a departure from traditional succession rhetoric. I have led our forces in victory for 3 decades, Tarivan continued. I have seen the strength of our fleets, the courage of our warriors, the brilliance of our strategists. But I have also seen the limitations of conquest as a philosophy. The murmuring grew louder. Tarivan raised a hand for silence. 10 years ago, a human scout was captured in contested space. By our laws, he should have been processed and repurposed. Instead, through a series of unexpected events, he became the catalyst for dialogue. That dialogue prevented a war. That dialogue opened paths previously unexplored. Tarivan turned slightly, acknowledging Tyler with a gesture. Ambassador Tyler Grant of the Earth Alliance has since worked tirelessly to build understanding between our civilizations. Not through submission, but through recognition of mutual benefit. This approach, once alien to Navorian thinking, has brought us new technologies, new resources, new opportunities that conquest alone could never have achieved. Tyler remained composed, though inwardly he was astonished at this public acknowledgement. But the true architect of this new vision has been one who was once deemed flawed by our rigid standards. One who saw possibilities where others saw only established protocols. One who demonstrated that different is not deficient, it is adaptive. At some signal Tyler didn't catch, Alara entered from a side chamber. She wore ceremonial attire that combined traditional elements with subtle innovations, symbolic of the changes she represented. Alara Tarivan, the Supreme Commander said, pride evident in his voice, has risen from rejected cadet to high technician through unprecedented pathways. Her neural differences, once considered a limitation, have proven to be evolutionary advantages, allowing her to forge connections and envision solutions invisible to conventional thinking. He turned to face her directly. The Imperial Council has unanimously confirmed you as my successor. Do you accept the responsibility of leadership? Alara's voice rang clear and confident. I accept, not as conqueror, but as connector. Not to extend dominion, but to explore collaboration. Tarivan removed the insignia of Supreme Commander from his armor and held it before him. Then approached and received the symbol of authority. As Alara stepped forward, Tyler noticed something remarkable. Throughout the hall, Navorians of every rank were watching not with the rigid formality he had come to expect, but with something that looked almost like hope. Alara accepted the insignia, and Tareven did something unprecedented in Navorian history. He knelt before his successor. Following his example, every Navorian in the assembly hall knelt as well, creating a cascading effect as thousands paid homage to their new leader. Alara stood tall among them, the insignia of Supreme Commander gleaming against her formal attire. Her eyes found Tyler's across the distance, and he saw in them the same determined spirit that had first questioned him in a detention cell, sharing half a ration bar. But she was not finished. Alara raised her hands for attention, and the assembly quieted. "Rise," she commanded, and the Navorians obeyed. Today marks not only a succession of leadership, but a succession of purpose. The Navorian Empire has prospered through strength, but true strength comes in many forms. She gestured toward Tyler. "Ambassador Grant, please join me." Tyler approached the dais, aware of thousands of Navorian eyes following his movement. As he reached Alara's side, he saw determination in her expression. 10 years ago, this human shared his last meal with a crying alien girl who believed herself worthless. That simple act of compassion, alien to our culture but fundamental to his, planted a seed. That seed has grown into the vision I present today. To Tyler's astonishment, Alara knelt before him. Beside her, former Supreme Commander Tareven also knelt. Like a wave, the motion spread through the assembly hall until every Navorian present was kneeling. The entire leadership of a once expansionist empire, acknowledging the power of a different way. "The Navorian Empire kneels not in submission," Alara declared, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber, but in recognition. "We recognize that true strength lies in connection, not conquest. In diversity, not dominance. In adaptation, not aggression." She rose, and the assembly followed. Ambassador Grant represents not just the Earth Alliance, but a philosophy our people are now ready to embrace. Today, we formally announce the transformation of the Navorian Empire into the Navorian Cooperative, a civilization that seeks to grow through collaboration rather than conquest. The announcement sent shockwaves through the assembly. Some faces showed shock or dismay, but Tyler was surprised to see how many displayed approval or even relief, as if a burden had been lifted from their collective shoulders. Alara extended her hand to Tyler in the human gesture of partnership she had learned from him. As he clasped it, she spoke again, her voice carrying not just authority but vision. "Let this moment be remembered through generations. The day when enemies became allies. When different became strength. When an empire chose to kneel so that all might rise together." The assembly erupted in a sound Tyler had never heard from Navorians before, not the disciplined acknowledgement of orders, but spontaneous approval. Change had come to a civilization that had prized unchanging tradition, and it had come not through force but through connection. Later, in a private chamber away from the continuing celebrations, Tyler and Alara had a moment alone. "Quite a ceremony," Tyler said, still processing the magnitude of what had transpired. "When you invited me, I didn't expect to witness the transformation of an entire civilization." Alara smiled, a fully natural expression now, no longer the careful imitation of her youth. Transformations rarely happen in a single moment. They build over time, through countless small changes. She studied him thoughtfully, like sharing food with someone you've been taught to fear. "I never feared you," Tyler said softly. "No, you saw me as I could be, not as I was told I must be." Alara's expression grew more serious. "There will be resistance. Centuries of expansion doctrine will not fade overnight. Some houses already protest, some colony worlds threaten secession. Change is never easy," Tyler acknowledged. "But it's clear you have more support than opposition. Because enough of our people have experienced the benefits of cooperation through the programs you helped establish." She stepped closer. The diplomatic corps predicts a 20-year transition period before the cooperative is fully stable. Will the Earth Alliance stand with us during that time? Tyler smiled. I can't speak officially for the entire alliance without consulting the council, but speaking personally, I've spent 10 years building bridges between our peoples. I'm not about to stop now. Good. Relief softened her features. Because I have requested that you be appointed as permanent liaison to the cooperative, the first joint position of its kind. Tyler raised an eyebrow. Is that a Supreme Commander's order or a friend's request? Both, Alera admitted. The child who shared your meal has become a leader, but she has not forgotten the kindness that showed her a different path. From outside came the sounds of celebration, a civilization embracing a new future, one built on connection rather than conquest. A future that had begun with the simple sharing of a meal between enemies. I accept the position, Tyler said. On one condition. Name it. That we find time, amid all the diplomatic functions and transformation efforts, to occasionally share a meal. Just as friends. Alera's smile brightened. I believe that can be arranged, Tyler grant. After all, the most important negotiations often happen over shared food. As they rejoined the celebration, Tyler reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought them to this moment. A desperate scout and a rejected child had somehow changed the course of two civilizations, not through grand strategies or powerful weapons, but through the simple, profound power of compassion and connection. The Empire had indeed knelt before him, not in defeat, but in recognition of a better way forward. And in that kneeling, all had risen together. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.